Branding. Branding is probably one of the most confusing elements of marketing. It's often this amorphous, vague, fluffy idea that we have to create brand or build brand. So what the heck is branding? How do we build it? What are the components that make for good branding? We're going to get into all of that in this training. First off, what is branding? Branding is the creation and amplification of a reputation. That's it. Reputation. So whenever you hear the word brand, think reputation. Our reputation is our brand. And how does anyone build a reputation for anything? It's done through consistency in execution. Are you known for being fast? Are you known for being cheap? Are you known for having high quality? Are you known for having nice staff? Whatever it is that you're known for, that didn't get built by the marketing team, that got built by you and your people on the ground delivering your product or your services day in and day out with consistency. And that's how you build a reputation, right? Think about how you have a friend that's always late. How they get that reputation? They're always late. What about the friend that is always on time? How they build that reputation? Because they're always on time. So it's these components of doing things consistently that is your reputation, that is your brand. Now, marketing amplifies that. Once you've got a reputation, we can accelerate how that reputation gets known in the communities or in your target geographies, among your target demographics and audiences. And also, marketing allows us the opportunity to create a reputation. So sometimes you don't have one. Maybe you haven't invested in it. Maybe you're a new provider in town. Maybe you have to build a new one because now you have lots of competition. So what you were known for is also what 5 other people are known for. And so you need to shift and pivot a little bit so that you can be differentiated again. And now we need to build a reputation in a slightly different direction or add to our reputation in a certain way. And so then in those cases, marketing is going to start to communicate that, and that will draw people in. But again, we still have to deliver. So if there's a mismatch between the promises we're making and what we say we do and what we actually do, then that creates problems. It creates bad online reviews. It creates bad word of mouth. It creates bad word of mouth among referral partners. And so eventually you'll have a negative result. So we always want to make sure that our marketing messaging is aligned with what we're doing and executing on well. But again, so marketing amplifies it, but also kind of pushes out there and creates the opportunity, entices people to give it a try for the first time so that you can build brand and build a reputation. How does brand drive ROI? This is a question that a lot of executives ask because, again, they think it's fluffy. They don't really understand what it is. Obviously, it should be clear to you. If you have a reputation for something, people are going to come to you, and they're going to come to you more than they're going to come to a competitor. And the word of mouth is also going to spread because they are talking about you in the community because you're known for doing something well, so you get recommended a lot. So that's the value of brand. It lowers marketing costs from an ROI standpoint. The more that someone knows you, the more that people are going to talk about you, the more they're going to refer to you, and you're not paying marketing dollars for that, right? When a community referral partner tells another community referral partner that they should use your services, or a man that came in for treatment then tells his wife to go use your services, or tells his friend, that's free marketing. We're not paying for it. Also, if we think about reputation, imagine you're doing a Google search and you're searching for your services online and you see dental services. And so I've seen Facebook advertisements for a particular provider. I had a friend recommend a particular provider. I just forgot about them. So when we do an online search, I see 3 ads, and then I see your dental clinic as one of the ads. Which one am I going to click on? I'm going to click on the one that I know. I'm like, oh, I know those guys. I've heard good things. Maybe I've read one of their articles from a Facebook post and they seem to have a lot of expertise. So I'm going to click on that one. So now they've clicked on yours versus the other 3. So you're getting more results, even though you're being displayed maybe the same amount of time as competitors. So again, it's lowering your marketing cost. And then they're more likely to become a patient because there's a certain level of pre-built trust there. They already know you or they have a good recommendation there. So when they call, they're a little bit pre-sold on you versus calling and shopping around. Or even if they do talk to a competitor, they still have a little bit more trust in you. So that brand, that reputation, gets them to convert to the click to the website better. It gets them to convert on the phone to a new scheduled assessment or a new patient into the program or your services. So brand and reputation is obviously critically important to the success of your organization. Direct ROI lowers marketing costs. Now in healthcare, this is a little less common unless you're private pay, but it also enables price premiums. If you're known for something, you can charge more. Like for example, Toyota and Honda cars, those are known for lasting a long time without requiring services or expensive repairs. Since they're known for that, their used cars sell for a lot more than other providers of cars, than other makes and models, right? So price premiums are a reality, but for healthcare, we're often fixed, right? The healthcare costs are actually insurance reimbursements, which are contractually negotiated. And so we don't have a lot of ability to have a price premium unless we're a private pay provider. So they don't often come into play in the healthcare vertical as much as they do elsewhere, but that is another value of reputation. You're known for something, you're known for quality, you can charge more for that quality or that consistency or whatever it is. What are the building blocks of brand? How do we do it? So if we are going to build our brand from a marketing standpoint, right? Remember, brand is reputation. Reputation is what you deliver. That's number one. But then we can think about from a marketing standpoint, the big three are your name, your logo, and your slogan and your mantra. And so let's say you're doing a rebrand or you are building an organization from scratch. And so this is your first time going through a branding process. You want three things. You want it to be memorable, relevant, and differentiated. Those are your three primary components when you're thinking about those pieces. Now, step back. We don't need these. They're not necessary to have them be memorable, relevant, and differentiated. Think about McDonald's. What does McDonald's tell us? What is their name? What is their logo? What are their colors? Tell us about anything. Often now you'll often say that McDonald's logo is associated with French fries, but that's not how it was originally created. It was just an M for McDonald's. And we had the golden arches. They kind of caught the eye, people thought, right? Or at least the owners thought at the time. So we now associate fast, decent, cheap food with McDonald's. We associate the name Starbucks with coffee. These had to be built. So they tied what the organization does to the logo over time. And that's completely viable. And a lot of organizations, probably most organizations, operate that way. They don't necessarily have a clear connection. However, if you're going through a rebranding process or if you're building an organization from scratch, you might as well take the time to do it better. And so a better way to do it, like if we take the McDonald's example, would be to have a name like Burger King. That is a great name. Very clearly communicates who they are, what they do, thinking about the logo in the same way. So your image should communicate what you do and should also hopefully communicate it in a way that is differentiated. Now, building differentiation into your logo and your name, super, super difficult. Most organizations aren't going to be able to do that, but we do want it to be relevant. So we've got the burger, for healthcare providers, we often have a symbol of a heart, or we have the image of a hospital, or even the image of a Red Cross that is familiar to a lot of people. Sometimes we have patients and some outlines of patients. A heart is a really common one within the healthcare space. Something that has some kind of visual communication about who you are and what you do is very, very valuable in the building blocks. Why? Why does this matter? Why do we have to think so much about our logo, our slogan, our name? Because for most people, they don't spend a lot of time on your marketing, especially as a new organization. 99.5% of people will not click on an awareness campaign. So how are you building reputation with your community if 99% of people aren't even engaging with your ads? Well, they're going to see them, right? Even if they're scrolling past them, even if they're just kind of catching out of the corner of their eye or hearing it as they're staring at their phone while watching TV, you're still getting that brief half a second of them seeing your logo, seeing your name, and seeing or hearing your slogan. If those three things communicate the right message, then that's helping us build brand with that 99% of people that are not engaging with ad content. That's the value. You're trying to think about, how do I simply communicate the most amount of information about us with the least amount of visual or auditory content. Then you can get into colors and fonts. These are things that we don't consider overly important. Again, it goes to both kind of a conscious and unconscious component of thinking about an organization. So often in healthcare, you'll see a lot of blues, a lot of greens, a lot of whites sometimes. You're not going to see a lot of blacks. You're often not going to see a lot of reds. And so why don't we use red in American culture? Because red tends to be more associated with violence, with blood. And so that's not an association we necessarily want with us as a healthcare provider, potentially. Now, if we're in China, red is very fortuitous. It's very lucky. It's considered really good. So you'll see a lot of red for healthcare brands in China, where you're not going to see a lot of red for healthcare brands in the US. Again, there's a conscious, unconscious element to that. So generally, we do want to think about having colors that associate with, again, the message that we're trying to convey. Now, one other component here, though, is I mentioned that a lot of healthcare organizations have your traditional blues and greens. And so how do we stand out? We also want our logos and our names to differentiate us. And we can do that through color. So if all of our competitors are the same color, it's very easy to have brand confusion. Again, people are catching out of the corner of their eye. They're not spending a lot of time on the ads. You got 99% of the people that are just kind of scrolling past it. So how do we stand out from the crowd? We can use a different color scheme. Maybe we're adding some pinks or some purples or some yellows or some oranges or whatever the situation is. So it's an opportunity for us to stand out. So we should think about that when we're thinking about colors and color schemes. Fonts, not a big fan of fonts. Doesn't really matter what font you have. Is a font going to convey something potentially? Does it help you stand out potentially? Assuming it's also easy to read, but we don't recommend spending a lot of time here. The real key is consistency. When you get into your colors, when you get into your tone, you want consistency in that communication. Because again, how do we build a reputation? How did our friend get a reputation for being on time? Because he's always on time. It's consistent. We need to consistently execute along our differentiators, but by being consistency or having consistency in the marketing materials in terms of our colors, our fonts, our logo, the way we talk about ourselves with our tone and our content, that consistency then connects easier to the reputation and allows us to make that connection between the McDonald's golden arches and fast food, right? How do we tie that all together? That consistency helps us tie it together. All that should be in a brand guide. So if you don't have one, I highly recommend that you have a brand guide compiled so that you have something your entire team can reference that allows you to build that consistency across the organization. Differentiators are key to your brand. How do you have a reputation? And then how do you stand out from competition? So when you're the only game in town, we work with a lot of healthcare providers. We've kind of started up with a lot of verticals as they've expanded across the US. And there's this situation where business just comes in because they were the only provider that offered those services. You're the only physical therapy provider. You're the only child pediatrician. You're the only dentist that does medical procedures while patients are sleeping. If you're the only one that does it, patients are going to find you and come to you. And that's great. But the reality is that if there was opportunity there, this is a capitalistic society. People are going to recognize, see that opportunity, and they are going to come in. So now we have competition. Now we have to compete against that competition. We do that through differentiation. When you think about differentiation, you should have three primary differentiators. What are things that you do really well and want to be known for? Now, one of those things must be something that none of your competitors do. That's usually the hardest one. Because it's very easy for us to say, oh, we provide really high quality care, we got good staff, whatever the situation is. But if all your competitors are doing the same thing, it doesn't matter because now you're just a commodity. You absolutely need to have some kind of differentiation that is separate and sets you apart. Ideally, that differentiator is hard to copy, right? Because then you're building a moat around your organization. If you can do something well that other people struggle to do well, then you're likely to have that differentiator last for a long time. You can build a really, really good reputation on it. So what are some things you can differentiate around? People often think of quality. Quality is not the only differentiator that you can have. It's a great differentiator to have. The better quality we provide, the better it is for everyone. But maybe we only provide Medicaid services, or maybe we operate on grant funding because we're a nonprofit healthcare provider. We're not going to be able to hire the best staff, buy the best technology. We're going to try to differentiate by providing reasonable, fair, or low-cost services to the best of our ability, but it's not going to be maybe the same as a provider that has lots of money and is funded in other ways. So we'll just run through a bunch of differentiators really quick. You just want to think about them as your organization. Type of care, what type of care are you delivering? Your method of care, how do you deliver that care? So again, this becomes really important if there's a lot of other providers that are providing the same care. Then it comes down to method. How do you do it differently or better or faster or cheaper? Your technology is often a big differentiator. Do you have some kind of equipment that allows for non-invasive or minimally invasive procedures that another provider might not? Location of care is a big differentiator for a lot of people. Are you easily accessible? Are you in an area that doesn't provide a lot of services? Are you closer to people's home? Those are big differentiators for people. So location can be a differentiator in itself. Pricing and insurance, obviously. Are you in network with individuals' insurances? That's a big selling point for a lot of people for obvious reasons. Can you provide lower cost services somehow? Staff is one I hear a lot. It's a little bit of a pet peeve of mine because when I start talking to organizations about differentiation, this is usually the one that they'll start with and the one they think of first and say, oh, well, our people make the difference. Now, that should be true and that's real. Of course, your people make the difference. How do you provide differentiated care or any kind of care? It's the people that are providing the care. But if you don't have intentional strategy around staffing as a differentiator, then no, staff is not a differentiator. If you're just putting up an ad on Indeed or ZipRecruiter or wherever, and that's the same thing all your competitors are doing, and you're just hiring the people that meet the qualifications, and that's the same thing your competitors are doing, that's not a differentiator. You're doing the exact same thing everyone else is. To get differentiated staff, you have to have an intentional recruitment strategy. Say, look, these are the people that we look for, and these are the people that we hire, and these people are hard to find, or they're expensive to hire, or it's difficult for us to really understand, or providers in general to understand, what makes them good at the way that we deliver care. We've got a really, really good recruitment process that makes sure that we get the right people in the door. That can be differentiated. A second point is obviously training. You've got a method of care, or you've got a way of talking to patients, or you've got a way of doing things that is a little bit faster, so it makes it a little bit cheaper, so you can provide services at a little bit lower cost. Your staff have to be trained on that, right? We can't just hire someone random from Indeed or ZipRecruiter, throw them in and expect them to deliver care in a way that's different, that's unique to us, because if it's unique to us, there's no way they would know how to deliver that care. So not only do we have to recruit right, but we have to train them specifically to deliver on our differentiator. If we do that, then staff is a differentiator. And I often think about this with patient communication. Some healthcare providers are terrible at patient communication. They can be rude, they can be gruff, they can use language that's too high of a level, so it's not understandable. They can be brisk. Lots of issues that can happen around provider-patient interaction. If you can train all of your providers so that they're really good at patient-facing care and communication, that is a significant differentiator. But I guarantee you 100% that you have to train them. Most of them will not come in with that skill set. So we would have to have training as a component to make staff a differentiator. Awards and accreditation. So obviously your JCAHO accreditation or CARF or other healthcare accreditations aren't a big recognition point for a lot of patients. They don't really notice that, but it's valuable to have, and it is a way that you can try to differentiate yourself from competition. Awards, generally a lot better. People are more interested in awards. Now, again, the award has tiers. Do people know the provider of the award? If I hear it's from Newsweek, that carries a little bit more weight than if it's from the local chamber of commerce who have never heard of besides this award that they supposedly delivered. So we do want to have a focus on getting awards that make sense, but any award can be a differentiator from a competitor, so worth looking at. And then support services. So you provide the care, but is there follow-up care? Do you provide follow-up calls? Do you provide free check-ins? Is there an app you provide patients to use after they've completed your services or bought your healthcare product? That's a value add that maybe your competitors don't have. Can be a good differentiator. So, all right, we've got our differentiators. Now, how do we build brand, right? How do we do this thing that we just talked about? Number one is alignment. Really emphasizing this again, you have to deliver on the thing that you do well. And so whatever promise you're making in the community, you actually have to do it. Because if you don't do that, it's going to go in the exact opposite direction. And then you're going to have a negative reputation, which we'll talk about later. Third parties are a great way to build brand. You can partner with influencers, which we'll talk about at the end. You can partner with other organizations that have a strong reputation, and so they're kind of vouching for you when they're working with you. It can be third-party platforms that do awards. It can be PR in terms of the news channel. That carries a certain amount of clout if they're willing to work with you and if they see something of value to report on. Super, super valuable. So any kind of third party can help you build a reputation if you don't have one already. Frequency and consistency is the simplest way to build brand and build a reputation. If you say something over and over and over again and people keep seeing it, unless they have information to the contrary, they're likely to start believing it. So just getting your marketing campaigns out there and having a certain level of frequency that you're pushing for with your target audiences in your geographies is going to help you build that reputation as long as you deliver on it. Provide proof, get testimonials, showcase Google reviews. Think of your traditional Tide ad, right? They always show themselves versus the competitor and how it compares. Think of a Burger King commercial where they show the burger that you're going to eat on the TV. Right? All of these things are to demonstrate and provide proof that we do what we say we do. Within healthcare, we can provide snapshots and videos, meet the staff, examples of the procedures, examples of results, before and afters, right? Lots of different ways to provide proof to patients so that they believe the reputation that we are promoting onto the community. You can also mitigate risk. This is a little bit harder to do in healthcare because, again, around kickback laws, Stark laws, concerns around insurance contracts. But if there's a way for you to mitigate risk, so maybe you come in for a service or a procedure and you guarantee that patient that if there's a complication, you'll take care of it for free, even if there's a complication 3 months, 6 months, or a year from now. You guarantee a specific outcome. And if you don't deliver the outcome that you are guaranteeing, then they don't pay for that particular procedure or service. There's lots of different ways to potentially mitigate risk. Again, always check with compliance here. But if we can mitigate risk for the patients, it's a lot easier for us to start building a reputation because more people are going to be willing to try us. We do get a lot of questions about extending brand. I talked to a lot of organizations around that. This is a pretty simple one. This all comes down to reputation. What are you good at? So let's start with the consumer good again, because it's usually easier to visualize. Oreo cookies. Oreo cookies is good at doing what? They're good at making cookies with cream in the middle. Am I going to trust Oreo cookies to make a new kind of soda? Am I going to try a soda made by Oreo? Probably not. I don't have any feeling that Oreo knows anything about soda. But if Oreo makes different kinds of Oreo cookies like they do now, yeah, I'm willing to try that. They're already good at making these kind of cookies. I trust them to do that. So if they change the flavor profile up a bit, great, I'll try it. Now, what about if they had like a frozen treat that was an Oreo frozen treat? Might give that a shot, right? We can see that logical connection between them being good at making a sweet and them being good at making a sweet that's frozen. So that's a possible extension of the brand that makes sense, whereas the extension into soda makes no sense. Or you wouldn't have like an Oreo alcohol, right? What does that have to do with anything? So when you're thinking about brand extensions, you should be thinking in the same way. Examples that do work, let's say you are a mental health provider, you can extend into substance use treatment or vice versa. That's an easy one. What if you are a provider of adult services? Can you expand to teen or pediatric services? Yeah, that's a logical extension. Same thing of going from pediatric to adult, or maybe adult to geriatric. Those are really clear connections that make sense for people to see, okay, yeah, they're very good at this thing. We can see why they would be very good at this really close adjacent thing. We would not have a provider that does cancer treatment that then is going to start offering urgent care services. It's not close enough, right? Or maybe you're an urgent care provider and then now you're branching off and adding on orthopedic therapy or physical therapy services after that. Like, being good at one does not mean you're good at the other. There's not a clear enough connection. So that's how you should think about extending brand. I mean, moving on to reputation repair, this one is really difficult for a lot of providers. It's obviously, if you're in the situation where you need to repair your reputation, you're in a pretty difficult spot. So as a marketing agency, we get a lot of people that have challenges. Most organizations don't reach out to a new marketing agency because things are going great. If things are going great, they're probably pretty happy with their current team or their current agency. We get the problems. Marketing costs are too high. The business isn't doing well. Sometimes we're going to come in and be able to look at that and say, okay, Google ads are terrible. You're paying 30% more as a cost per conversion than you should be doing. That's an easy fix. That's going to help you save more money, connect a lot more patients to care for cheaper, or the SEO is terrible, or there's no comprehensive strategy, or there's no connection between the promises that you're making and what the clinical team's delivering, or what's being communicated by the outreach team. Everyone's operating in these silos. Lots of opportunity to fix things and do things better. But one area that can be challenging when providers come to us is this reputation component. When we look at what's going on in terms of their success, it's not that the marketing is bad. Maybe the Google ads are on point. There's a holistic plan across the board, but nobody's coming in because they've developed a negative reputation. And that could be a marketing problem because they've communicated the wrong things. They made promises that they didn't deliver on, and maybe that was marketing's fault. Or it's the operation care delivery component that's bad. The care team says that this is what they want or are trying to deliver, and then they don't deliver on it, even though that's what they communicated to the marketing team. It doesn't really matter how it happened or who's at fault. Right now, we're in a reputation repair phase. We have to fix it. So first and foremost, we have to know what needs to be fixed, and we have to fix it. The worst thing that you can do is say you're going to fix something and then start again making promises into the community that you're not delivering on. That will tank the business faster than anything. So before you worry about your current team or working with a new vendor or agency, you have to get crystal clear on what was broken and what needs to be fixed, and then fix it. Then once you got it fixed, now you can move into a communications phase. And you can do this two ways. You can be really open and transparent and talk to your community, use your marketing campaigns to say, we were known for doing this thing wrong. Here's how we made it better. Here are the improvements that we've made. Or the latter, which is usually the more common route, is you can just not mention the components that you weren't good at, but focus on what you've improved. We've hired more staff. We've hired better staff. We've completely overhauled the way that we provide care. We've overhauled our communications. Come see our new improved care delivery. Come see this great new provider that we hired. Come meet the team and see all the changes we've had within our organization over the past 2 months. All these kinds of communications can be ways for you to get people to start to try and trust you again. You can also go back to those mitigating risk components. So if the community has a reputation or community thinks about you a certain way that's negative, you've got to get them to try you again. And so is there a way for us to mitigate the risk of what they believe is still broken? So can we communicate something out there where they get a discounted offer or a free trial, or even things as simple as, like I said, coming in for an open house or a lunch and learn for them to see all the changes, to get some more trust there that you have actually made the changes that you say you're making. Because part of the breakdown in trust is already that component where you said you were going to do something and you didn't. So if we market into the community saying, hey, we've changed, we're doing it better, people aren't prone to believe us at this point because that broken reputation leads to a loss of trust in terms of what we say. Are we actually going to do what we say we're going to do? Our community referral partners don't believe us yet. So your challenge with the reputation rebuild is a lot of time. It's a lot of money. And if the organization's in turnaround mode, are they going to be able to survive the amount of time needed for the community to regain trust? It's a big question mark. So when you look at your marketing campaigns, you really have to look at your budgeting and say, hey, how tight do we get this focus? Maybe we just want to start small and say, okay, schools are our primary referral partners in the past. And so we're just going to focus our marketing budgets on schools, convince them, show them how we've changed, how we're doing things better, how we've fixed all the broken components, get them to trust us. Once they trust us, then we can expand our marketing to focus on another referral source or the community in general. But take it small and work within your budgets, work within your cash flow constraints. That's going to be the smartest way to do it. Fix it first, then communicate it. Whenever possible, mitigate risk, make sure you're managing cash flow. Branding FAQs. So can marketing alone build a brand? Hopefully, coming through this training and through other modules, you should be clear that no, it absolutely can't. Your brand is built by what you do. Your reputation is what you do. It's not what you say you do. We're not putting lipstick on a pig and calling it a beautiful person. We are doing the thing we promised to do. That has to have that alignment. So branding alone is not, or marketing alone is not building your brand. It's what you do. Marketing then amplifies that or communicates in a way that gets people to be willing to give you a try. What's the fastest way to build brand? Really comes down to money. To build a reputation, how do we build it? We have to build it by getting more people to try us and then more people talking about us, whether that's online or in person. And so how do we get more people to try us? We got to spend more money to get people in. And that even goes for when we talk about mitigating risk, offering free services, discounted services, offering some kind of free app that comes along with the service visit, some kind of thing that attracts people, incentivizes them to give us a shot, has a cost to it. And so spending money is going to be the fastest way to build a reputation. You just have to be careful there. Oftentimes, volume is an operational challenge. And so if we do spend a whole bunch of money on marketing and that gets people in the door to give us that try so we can build that brand and that reputation, if we have too many patients coming in, we're going to have communication problems, we're going to have scheduling problems, we might have care delivery problems. So we just want to make sure that those don't happen, because then we would have that negative result where we say one thing, patients come in, have a bad experience, and now we've got a negative reputation. Not what we want. Should we partner with influencers? Definitely want to check out the module or the training on PR and influencers. That's going to answer this question in depth. The main question here is, does the person have a reputation that's relevant to you? Do they have followers? How many do they have? And what's the cost? How much is it going to cost you? Always going down to the CPM thinking mindset when we're looking at investments in any channel on marketing. And influencers are a channel in that sense. So if I think of an individual that's going to have influence on healthcare, am I going to look for someone that is out of shape? No, that would be probably not someone that we want to have be an influencer for our organization. We want that influencer to have followers that trust that individual about the topic for the services that we provide. So if an influencer has a ton of followers, they have nothing related to our healthcare services, then there's not a real point in partnering with that influencer. The only exception to that might be if our services apply to the general population. And so then we're just looking at a numbers game. Can I talk to someone that is an influencer that has a ton of followers, that isn't going to charge us that much, or has a CPM basis that makes sense, that is reasonable and fair? Then it might be worth it just to look at it from like a reach standpoint. But for the most part, it's much better to find someone that has a following that's focused on healthcare and focused specifically on the services that you're providing, because those followers trust that individual. And it all comes down to trust. So if they trust that individual and that individual recommends your services, even if it's sponsored, they're much more likely to take action on it. Now, what I always encourage here is make sure that the influencer actually cares about your services and has used them. That's much more believable. If the influencer says, hey, you should try these out, they're paying for an advertisement, that's one thing. Or if you say, hey, I've used this service, it was a great outcome for me. Yes, I'm being paid for it, but great, highly recommend it. That's much more valuable. So that's what you want to try, is an influencer that's willing to use your services or your products, that has a reputation for the area of your competence, and that has followers that are trusting that individual. How much should we spend on brand awareness? I don't like this question because it comes across that awareness is what brand is about, and that it doesn't have a clear ROI on it. So coming through this training, you should understand that your brand, your reputation has a very significant ROI, and that ROI is lowering your overall marketing costs by increasing conversions or increasing the free word of mouth within the community. So when you think of brand awareness is just getting in front of the right people with the right message at the right time. As always, we grab their attention, we work to convince them to try our services or our product, and that's all marketing. So brand awareness is not something fluffy. The difference is, or where the confusion I think a lot of people have, is there's not a direct conversion there. Again, we're not going to push something out on Facebook or TV on a billboard, and every person that sees it suddenly stops what they're doing and gives us a call, right? It's not bottom of funnel, search intent driven like Google Ads is or like SEO is. So because of that, people often confuse brand awareness with fluffiness, but it's absolutely not. It's just a longer timeline in terms of getting people to convert. So we're always thinking about our CPMs. We're thinking about getting in front of the right people, right time, right message. It does work. It has a very clear ROI. You're just measuring it through qualified inquiry lift rather than a direct cost per acquisition. What's the best channel for brand building? Completely depends on where's your audience. The best channel for brand building is where your audience is and where they're going to be most interested in your services. How long does it take to build brand? How long does it take to build a reputation? If I'm known for being on time, do I get that reputation from being on time once, or do I have to be on time multiple times? If I've got a reputation with you, do I have that reputation with your friends, your family, your colleagues? Like, no, I have to prove myself again and again and again. As I prove myself over and over again, then there could be some word of mouth. Like, hey, I need someone to pick me up from the airport. Do you know anyone that's really reliable and on time? It's like, oh yeah, I know Nick. Nick's super reliable, always on time. Let me give him a call, see if he's willing to pick you up. Then I get an extension of my reputation slowly but surely over time. So that's how we want to be thinking about these things. Reputation builds are gradual. They're usually pretty slow, just like building a reputation in real life. Sometimes you can build faster, sometimes slower. Fastest way, again, is going back to spending a lot of money to get people to try your services. So the more you got people trying you, the easier and quicker it is for you to build reputation. I do hope that this training in particular was really clarifying for a lot of people, because I know this is a big point of confusion for a lot of not just executives, but individuals in general. And I'd say even marketing professionals often don't have a clear understanding of what brand is or brand building is. So there's a very clear ROI to it, very clear system and process. And just remember, it's reputation.